As the college entrance examination loomed large, the class monitor fell deeply in love with the hoodlum who had been tormenting her. She skipped classes, indulged in drunken binges, resorted to self-harm, and even had an abortion, wantonly squandering the precious days of her senior year in high school. She kept insisting that this was her redemption, falling in love with one's abuser after being bullied. What a warped sense of redemption that was. As her homeroom teacher, I couldn't bear to watch her spiral down into self-destruction. So I informed her parents, and in the end she was forced to part ways with the bully. Later, she was admitted to either Tsinghua or Peking University. After graduation, she became a renowned female entrepreneur. The first thing she did upon returning to China was to exact revenge on me and ruin my reputation. She declared that I was unfit to be a teacher, and even bribed a truck driver to run me over and kill me. Given a second chance at life, I resolved to respect others' fates. I decided to let her be, allowing her to be passionately in love with the bully. The moment the school bell rang, I instinctively tensed up, remembering the horror of being hit by a truck and flung dozens of meters away. With the excruciating pain of repeated nanya still lingering, I was too scared to open my eyes. But a familiar female voice pulled me back to the present. "Miss Lee, I beg you not to tell my parents. We truly love each other." I suddenly stood up and touched my uninjured body. The pain of being run over by the truck vanished instantly, like a tide receding. Only then did I belatedly realize that I had actually been reborn. Looking at Jiangwan's beautiful face in front of me, I involuntarily took a step back. Jiangwan stepped forward and supported me. "Miss Lee, what's wrong with you?" What was wrong with me? I looked at Jiangwan in front of me, the study committee member of the Key Senior 3 class. A promising candidate cultivated by the school for admission to Tsinghua or Peking University. She fell in love with the hoodlum who bullied her within less than 100 days before the college entrance examination. Jiangwan had excellent academic performance and outstanding looks, but she was targeted by the hoodlum from the off-campus tattoo shop and was constantly harassed. After she clearly rejected the hoodlum, Duan Wei, he flew into a rage and started leading others to bully her. They cornered Jiangwan in the restroom, took her nude photos, forced her to smoke, drink, and get tattoos, and even took her to a KTV to sing for money. In my previous life, as soon as I learned that Jiangwan was bullied, I reported it to the police. However, she signed a letter of forgiveness at the police station. She grandly claimed that Duan Wei was just in a bad mood and hit her a couple of times, causing no real harm. I originally thought that she signed the letter of forgiveness out of fear of being threatened by those people. But she told me to mind my own business and then fell in love with the bully. She began skipping classes for the bully, and the two lingered in various private cinemas and got drunk in KTVs and internet cafes. As time went by, Duan Wei grew tired of her. He started beating her and even blamed her, saying she wasn't good enough to stay by his side. In an attempt to stay by his side, Jiangwan resorted to self-harm, and later she found out that she was pregnant. When she went to an unlicensed clinic for an abortion, she suffered from massive bleeding. As her homeroom teacher, since I couldn't persuade her otherwise, I had no choice but to inform her parents. Upon learning of this, her parents slapped her several times and then called the police, sending Duan Wei to prison. It was said that Duan Wei kept causing trouble while in prison. Eventually, he was sentenced to death, and Jiangwan finally got back on the right track. After I gave her intensive tutoring, she was successfully admitted to Tsinghua, or Peking University as she had hoped. After graduation, she became a well-known female entrepreneur. But the first thing she did upon returning to the country was to take revenge on me, smearing my reputation and saying that I was unworthy of being a teacher. She pressured the school to fire me. She bribed a truck driver, who ran me over and killed me. Just before I died, I heard her whispering in my ear, "If you hadn't informed on us that year, Awei wouldn't have died. Why did you meddle in our business? I want you to accompany Awei in death." Only then did I realize that she had harbored a grudge against me for so many years. Just like that, I died at the hands of the student whom I had carefully educated for 3 years and had high hopes for. "Miss Lee, I promise that it won't affect my studies. I beg you not to tell my parents." Jiangwan's voice echoed in my ears again, coming back to my senses and looking at her. In this life, I decided to stop meddling and respect others' fates. "Classmate Jiang, the college entrance examination is coming up. I hope you can take responsibility for your life. After graduation, you can date however you want. Miss Lee, with my grades, getting into Tsinghua or Peking University is not a problem. I promise it won't affect my studies. Just think it through. The teacher doesn't object to you pursuing love, as long as it doesn't affect your studies." "Thank you, Miss Lee. I promise it won't affect my studies." In my previous life, she made the same promise, but in the end, I became the scapegoat. This time, I decided to do as she wished and stop meddling. I let her be passionately in love with the bully. As the days passed by, Wanwan, just like in the previous life, started skipping classes frequently to date Duan Wei. The two skipped classes to watch movies and lingered in private cinemas, small woods and KTVs. They got couple tattoos on their chests, raced on motorcycles in the midnight streets, and passionately kissed in the rain. She gradually indulged in this kind of life and started wearing heavy makeup, looking just like those idle and delinquent girls. Occasionally, some classmates couldn't stand it and said something to her. She retorted, "Do you understand what love is? Do you know what a genius is? Even if I don't study, I can still get the first place in the exam. Unlike you, no matter how hard you try, you can't surpass me." What Jiangwan said was right. She was indeed a rare genius. Even if everyone spends the same amount of time and effort on studying, they can only trail behind her. However, I believe that everything requires effort to get a reward. Since she is so confident, I might as well stand by and do nothing. Let's see what kind of life she can lead in this lifetime. In the following days, I completely gave up on Jiangwan and immersed myself in teaching other students. One evening, on my way home from school, I saw Jiangwan in an alley with a group of hoodlums. She was smoking, wearing exaggerated smoky eye makeup, a miniskirt, and covered in tattoos on her arms and thighs. Nestled in Duan Wei's arms, she presented a stark contrast to her past self. I shook my head. This time, her transformation was none of my concern. However, as I turned to leave, I heard cries for help. Turning back, I saw them Weigong, a girl, raining punches and kicks on her. When I punching her face, I realized she was a student from the neighboring class. I'd witnessed Jiangwan's callousness in my previous life, but I never expected that she, who had once been bullied, had now become a bully herself. I stepped forward and shouted, "Stop! I'll call the police if you don't stop right now." The group turned to look at me in unison. Jiangwan's face went pale instantly. "Miss Li," she said, likely not expecting to encounter me. She tugged at her miniskirt and looked flustered. I walked over, helped the beaten girl up, and was about to leave when Jiangwan called out from behind, "Miss Li, you won't tell my parents, right?" I paused. "Of course not. Your life is your own. Just don't regret your choices in the future. Take care of yourself." With that, I helped the girl leave. As rain began to pour, Jiangwan shouted at our retreating figures, "I won't regret it. I'm in charge of my youth. Just stay out of my business. I'll definitely get into Tsinghua or Peking University this time." Then it dawned on me. Jiangwan had been reborn too. No wonder she could always vow with such certainty that she'd be admitted to those prestigious universities. At the hospital, the doctor was treating the girl's wounds. My eyes fell on her. She was thin, seemingly malnourished, with no trace of color on her tiny, delicate face. "Thank you, Miss Li, for saving me," she said. I looked at her pale visage and asked, "What's your name?" "Zhu Ping'an," she replied. "Ping'an, peace, is a beautiful name. I guess your parents love you very much, naming you with the wish for safety and smooth sailing." I then asked, "Why did they beat you?" Ping'an hesitated but finally confessed, "I work part-time at a KTV. When I was serving the fruit platter, Jiangwan accused me of flirting with her boyfriend. She brought a group of people to intercept me on my way home from work." A look of doubt crossed my face. "I remember you're a student from the neighboring class. With the college entrance examination approaching, how do you have time to work part-time? Do your parents know?" Zhu Ping'an lowered her head, looking dejected. Since she didn't want to elaborate, I decided not to pry further. "Come on, I'll take you home," I said simply. Zhu Ping'an suddenly stood up. "Miss Li, I can go back by myself. Thank you for your help tonight. I don't want to trouble you." I couldn't help but smile at her demeanor. "The rain is getting heavier, and it's hard to get a taxi around here. Are you planning to walk back?" In the end, Zhu Ping'an got into my car. Once inside, she placed a piece of paper under her feet, sitting stiffly as if afraid to dirty the vehicle. The car finally stopped at a dilapidated residential building, with a large demolished sign marked in red at the entrance. Following her inside, I couldn't help but frown. The entire room was damp and gloomy, with windows sealed with newspapers. There was only a small bed and a desk. The room was otherwise empty. The sole desk was piled high with books. "You live here? All alone?" Zhu Ping'an nodded and then used a shabby kettle to pour me a cup of hot water. Judging by the situation, I assumed she'd had a fight with her parents and run away from home. So I advised her gently, "The college entrance examination is coming up. Don't be stubborn at this crucial time. Talk things out with your parents. It's not safe for you to live here alone. Reconcile with them and go home. Don't let your willfulness affect your future." Zhu Ping'an smiled at me. "Got it, Miss Li. Be careful on your way back." Before I left, I detected a hint of sadness beneath her smile, but perhaps I was overthinking it. Maybe she'd just run away from home on a whim, and now, out of money and too proud to ask her parents for help, she'd resorted to part-time work. She'd surely go back to her parents when she came to her senses. The next day, right after class, I was drawn to the commotion in the neighboring class. A middle-aged woman stood at the door shouting, "Where's Zhu Ping'an? Come out. Do you think you can hide from me just by running away?" She was Zhu Ping'an's mother. It seemed my guess from last night had been correct. The runaway daughter had finally been tracked down at school. But the words that came out of the woman's mouth hardly seemed those of a loving mother. "You little wretch. Do you think changing your number will stop me? When I get my hands on you, I'll skin you alive." As her shouts grew louder, the homeroom teacher of the neighboring class hurried out to see what was going on. "Mrs. Zhu, don't be so agitated. We can talk this through. I'm her homeroom teacher." At the mention of the teacher, Ping'an's mother wailed even louder. "How could I have given birth to such an ungrateful child? Her sister is lying in the hospital, waiting for her blood to survive, and she just runs away. The surrounding students started whispering and pointing fingers. I never thought Zhu Ping'an, who seemed so well-behaved, could be so heartless. She won't even save her own sister. Stay away from her, she's too cruel. Just then Zhu Ping'an's voice rang out. Mom, what are you doing? Her mother immediately slapped her across the face. Finally found you. Your sister is waiting for your blood in the hospital. Come with me right now and donate. Zhu Ping'an forcefully shook off her mother's hand. I'm not going. The mock exam is coming up, and I need to study. Another slap landed on her face. Her mother pointed at her and shouted, How can you be so selfish and heartless? Have you ever thought about how much your sister is suffering in the hospital? It's just a blood donation. Your sister is on the verge of death. Why won't you help? Zhu Ping'an covered her face, and under the judgmental gazes of her classmates, she finally broke down. Is it my fault? Aren't I your daughter too? Why do you only care about my sister? The air grew deathly still. Her mother looked shocked and aggrieved. How could I have given birth to such a thing? Do you want your sister to die? She's your own flesh and blood. Zhu Ping'an, with tears in her eyes, shouted hoarsely. So I was born just to be my sister's savior? Ever since I was little, the only time you cared about me was when you needed my blood. From once every few months to now once every few days, you never cared if my body could take it. The only value I have in your eyes is to keep my sister alive. Have you ever considered how I feel? I was stunned. No wonder Zhu Ping'an looked so thin and malnourished. It was due to the long-term blood loss. I finally understood that she'd been born with the sole purpose of saving her sister, and even her name was a wish for her sister's well-being. But her words only angered her mother further. In her mother's eyes, it was only natural for Zhu Ping'an to donate blood. If she refused, she was ungrateful and heartless. Seeing that Zhu Ping'an still refused, her mother flew into a rage and tried to hit her again. I quickly stepped in to protect Zhu Ping'an. Let's talk this out calmly. Don't hit the child. In the end, Zhu Ping'an was still taken to the hospital. Since I had no classes in the afternoon, I informed the neighboring class teacher and accompanied Zhu Ping'an and her mother to the hospital. When the needle pierced Zhu Ping'an's vein for the third time, and I saw the Mimi Mama de needle marks on her hand, my face turned pale. But as a teacher, there was only so much I could interfere in a student's family affairs. Zhu Ping'an, however, showed no emotion, as if she'd long since become numb to the blood drawing process. In a trance, the doctor had completed drawing 200 cubic centimeters of blood. The doctor told Zhu Ping'an's mother, the child is starting to suffer from anemia. No more blood should be drawn. Make sure to cook her iron-rich meals like pig liver and chicken soup to help her recover. Her mother finally showed a hint of a smile, stroking Zhu Ping'an's head. Ping'an dear, what would you like to eat? Mom will make it for you when we get home. Then she walked into the adjacent ward without looking back. I followed her in and saw a pale-faced girl lying in bed. This was Zhu Ping'an's sister, Zhu Qianqian. Her mother looked at her with Xin tongue. Qianqian, are you feeling better? Does it still hurt? Zhu Qianqian glanced at Zhu Ping'an in the corner. Will my sister resent me? She asked, licking Keizhou. Her words only deepened her mother's Xin tongue. It's only right for your sister to help you. Your family. Isn't that right, Miss Li? Her mother suddenly turned to me, as if expecting me to agree. Although I didn't want to meddle too deeply in their family affairs, I couldn't condone her actions. Suppressing my anger, I replied, I understand that you care about Qianqian, but do you think this is fair to Ping'an? She's a human being, not a blood-giving machine. And with the college entrance examination approaching, aren't you worried that this will affect her future? Not getting the answer she wanted, her expression turned sour. You're right, Miss Li. I'll arrange for her to drop out of school right away so she can focus on taking care of her sister at home. I was dumbfounded. Mrs. Zhu, what do you mean? With the college entrance examination so close, you want her to drop out? Are you going to ruin her entire future? Future? Is her future more important than her sister's life? We wouldn't have had her if it weren't for Qianqian's illness. She was born for Qianqian. With that, she actually took out her phone to call the school about the dropout. Just then, Zhu Ping'an, who had been silent in the corner, spoke up. Go ahead and do it. If you make me drop out, I'll jump off the roof. Once I'm dead, you'll lose your walking blood bank. And then you can watch your precious daughter die from lack of blood. Her mother flew into a rage. How dare you threaten me with suicide? I should have strangled you at birth. Zhu Ping'an sneered. You wouldn't have the heart to. You gave birth to me only for Qianqian. If you have the guts, go ahead and arrange for my dropout. I'll die right away. These words infuriated her mother, who clutched her chest and kept cursing her as an unfilial daughter. Seeing that there was no reasoning with her, I grabbed Zhu Ping'an and left the ward. In the hospital corridor, Zhu Ping'an, with tears in her eyes, said to me, Miss Li, thank you for standing up for me. I shook my head. Don't mention it. It's what a teacher should do. She then asked, Miss Li, do you think I'm heartless for not helping my sister? I gently touched her head and comforted her. Of course not. This is your life. Your parents may have given you life, but you have the right to decide your own path. And your sister's suffering isn't your fault. You shouldn't have to bear the consequences. Zhu Ping'an hugged me tightly. Thank you, Miss Li. After she stopped crying, she looked at me hesitantly. Miss Li, could you lend me some money? I'll get a summer job after the college entrance examination and pay you back for sure. In fact, while watching her donate blood, I'd already made a decision. She had a bright future ahead and shouldn't be trapped as a walking blood bank for the rest of her life. I nodded, transferred 3,000 yuan to her and said, You can stay at my place for now. The place you're living in is a dilapidated building scheduled for demolition. It's not safe. Zhu Pingyan shook her head. Miss Li, I'm already incredibly grateful that you lent me the money. I don't want to impose any further. I knew she was shy, so I smiled and said, what if something happens at the place where you're living now? How will you take the college entrance examination then? Zhu Pingyan hesitated but finally agreed. She kept thanking me profusely. Although I wasn't sure if she'd become another Jiang Wan, repaying kindness with enmity, I just wanted these children with dreams to be able to see the broader world through their own efforts. As if on cue, when leaving the hospital, I saw Jiang Wan at the corner on the second floor. She was queuing at the gynecology and obstetrics department. I remembered that in my previous life she had also found out she was pregnant around this time. To avoid affecting the college entrance examination, she went to an unlicensed clinic alone for an abortion, and eventually suffered massive bleeding, which was so severe that I had to inform her parents. Unexpectedly, she held a grudge against me for years because of that. In this life, I'd do as she wished and simply act as an uninformed bystander. Zhu Pingyan moved into my home for the next 2 months. I must say, she was an intelligent and diligent child. Not only did she study hard, but in her spare time she also helped keep my house spotless. When I told her there was no need to be so polite, she would always smile and nod, then work even harder to tidy up the house. In terms of studies, I gave her as much extra tutoring as possible. She had fallen behind due to taking care of her sister, so her grades had been mediocre. Soon the monthly mock exam arrived, and Zhu Pingyan made remarkable progress, rising from over 200th place to over 100th place. To celebrate, I cooked many of her favorite dishes. Of course, it wasn't just for celebration. I also wanted her to eat more as she was extremely thin. Meanwhile, Jiang Wan dropped from the first place in the whole school to outside the top 20. The school leaders took this seriously because she was the most promising candidate for Tsinghua and Peking University. Jiang Wan's decline prompted the school leaders to investigate the cause, and they finally discovered that she was in a relationship. As her homeroom teacher, I was severely reprimanded by the school leaders. In the end, the school punished her with a public notice of criticism and asked her to write a self-critique and reflect in front of all the students. So, after the Monday flag-raising ceremony, she stood on the stage with a blank self-critique and boldly spoke into the microphone. I don't regret being with the person I like. Youth is a non-stop journey of encounters and farewells. I promise all the teachers and students here that I, Jiang Wan, will be admitted to Tsinghua or Peking University. I will be this year's top scorer in the college entrance examination. After she finished speaking, passionate applause rang out. Many people were inspired by her words and expressed their approval, saying this was the beautiful essence of youth. I just gave her a silent look. Presumably, she had memorized the college entrance examination answers from her previous life perfectly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had the audacity to say such things. Because she knew the answers, she didn't take these mock exams seriously at all. After that, we were called to the principal's office. The principal slammed the table in anger. This is outrageous, Jiang Wan. There are only 6 months left until the college entrance examination. You can date freely after graduation. You must take responsibility for your life. Then the principal turned to me. Miss Li, as her homeroom teacher, please talk some sense into her. Before I could speak, Jiang Wan preempted me. Principal, don't worry about the college entrance examination. As I said, I will definitely get into Tsinghua or Peking University. She then looked at me. Miss Li, what do you think? I shrugged. Principal, what can I say? She's already claimed that she'll be the top scorer. Since Jiang Wan is so confident, let's wait and see. The principal hesitated but, considering Jiang Wan's previous consistent first-place finishes, didn't say more. Since Jiang Wan made that bold promise in front of the whole school, she became even more brazen. Relying on her memories of the previous life, she skipped classes every day and hung out with Duan Wei. She even rented an apartment off campus with him, not caring about the rumors at school, and they started living together. In her previous life they had separated like this, so this time she was determined to make up for the regrets of the past. After all, she remembered all the college entrance examination answers and even gave up the opportunity to participate in the school's English competition, thinking she had nothing to worry about. The principal didn't want her to give up this chance and asked me to persuade her again. One day, on my way home from work, I happened to see Duan Wei and his group at a nearby barbecue stall. Duan Wei had another woman in his arms, and his hand kept sneaking inside her clothes. His cronies jokingly asked, Brother Duan, are you really into that schoolgirl? Duan Wei sneered, just for fun. She ignored me at first, but now she's my plaything. I like bringing down those haughty types. Someone else said, Brother Duan, you're so charming. I think that Jiang Wan was just playing hard to get. She actually fell head over heels for you long ago. Duan Wei looked at Yi. When I told her to leave, she hurt herself to threaten me. She really thought I liked her. I just thought she was good looking and wanted to have some fun. More and more vulgar words reached my ears, but I shook my head and pretended not to hear. I wondered if Jiang Wan would regret her choice if she heard these words. When I got home, Zhu Pingyan had already reheated the meal. Miss Li, you're back. The food is in the pot. I smiled at her and then handed her the materials for the English competition. Want to give it a try? Her face lit up with Jingxi when she saw them, but then she looked discouraged. Miss Li, am I really up to it? You won't know unless you try. The first prize comes with a 20,000 yuan bonus. At the mention of the bonus, Zhu Pingyan's eyes sparkled. Thank you, Miss Li. I'll sign up and do my best. On the day of the English competition, 2 major events happened at school. One was that Zhu Pingyan won 3rd place in the English competition and received a 10,000 yuan bonus. She had distanced herself from her parents, who had been exploiting her. She had worked incredibly hard, studying late into the night and memorizing words as soon as she woke up. I had witnessed her progress day by day, and I was truly happy for her to receive this honor. Amidst the joy, news of another event came. Jiang Wan had a miscarriage and was now being changed in the ICU. I remembered that in the previous life she had also gone to an unlicensed clinic for an abortion around this time, which led to massive bleeding and her being transferred to a major hospital. This time, she had a miscarriage due to severe domestic violence from Duan Wei. It seemed she really loved Duan Wei. If it hadn't been for the miscarriage, I would have suspected she would have kept the baby. When her parents found out, they called the police just like in the previous life. When I arrived at the police station, Jiang Wan's parents were arguing with Duan Wei. Jiang Wan's mother was so enraged that she rushed up and slapped Duan Wei, leaving 5 finger marks on his face. His first reaction was to fight back. "You old hag! How dare you hit me?" The police rushed to restrain him when they saw he was about to lash out. "Why are you stopping me? She hit me first." Jiang Wan's mother sneered at him. "Why? Because you beat up my daughter. Do you know you've ruined her bright future? She's about to take the college entrance examination. Do you know how much effort we've put into raising her? You made her give up her studies to be with you, got her pregnant, and even worse, you beat her until she had a miscarriage." Unexpectedly, Duan Wei burst out laughing. "Me beating her? Get your facts straight. Your precious daughter begged me to be with her on her knees. I told her to have an abortion, but she refused and said she wanted to keep our loved child. Since she wouldn't go, I helped her out." Jiang Wan's father almost fainted from anger and grabbed a fruit knife from the nearby table, charging at Duan Wei to avenge his daughter. Fortunately, the police stopped him in time. In the end, Jiang Wan's parents sued Duan Wei in court, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for inducing a minor and intentional assault. At the crucial moment, Jiang Wan rushed into the courtroom shouting, "True love is innocent." She claimed that Duan Wei hadn't hit her, and that the miscarriage was due to her own accident, saying it was just couple play. These words left her parents stunned. Her mother slapped her, probably never expecting that her usually obedient daughter would defy her for a hoodlum. She was so angry that she trembled all over and could barely stand. "Mom, this has nothing to do with Wei. It was all my choice. I love him." Her father also slapped her. "You fool. The college entrance examination is coming up. How can you ruin your future like this?" But Jiang Wan still defended Duan Wei. "Your Honor, Duan Wei didn't hit me. He treats me well. This was all my doing." In the end, Jiang Wan signed a letter of forgiveness, and Duan Wei was released without charge. The moment his handcuffs were removed, he looked at Jiang Wan's parents triumphantly, and Jiang Wan immediately rushed to hug him. "Wei, I'm so glad you're okay. I won't let you go this time." Jiang Wan's parents looked on, almost fainting from frustration and disappointment. After the trial, Jiang Wan knelt in front of her parents. "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry, but I really love him." Her mother wept. "We've spent so much time and money raising you. Not for you to be so obsessed with a hoodlum. Dad, I know. I promise I'll get into Tsinghua or Peking University. Please don't stop me from being with Wei." In the end, her parents could only sigh repeatedly, looking as if they had aged 10 years overnight. I stood by, remaining silent throughout. Wasn't this the ending Jiang Wan had dreamed of in her previous life? I just hoped she wouldn't regret it. Jiang Wan's affair caused a huge stir in the school. It was said that after she got home, her parents still tried to stop her from being with Duan Wei, so she resorted to hunger strikes and self-harm to threaten them. Eventually, her parents couldn't bear to see her hurt herself and agreed, but with one condition. She couldn't meet Duan Wei until after the college entrance examination, unless she was successfully admitted to Tsinghua or Peking University. Jiang Wan, confident as ever, agreed without hesitation. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, the countdown on the wall reached the last 3 days. In the senior 3 classrooms, students buried themselves in their studies. The desks were piled high with mountains of books and materials, and the air was thick with tension, as if one could feel the seconds of the college entrance examination countdown ticking away rapidly. The night before the college entrance examination, I told Zhu Ping'an not to think about anything and to go to bed early to be in the best condition for the exam, but an accident occurred. Zhu Qianqian's condition suddenly worsened, and her mother called dozens of times. To prevent it from affecting Zhu Ping'an's exam, I turned off her phone. However, her mother still came with a group of people, and the loud banging on the door was terrifying. Her mother's shouts came from outside. "Zhu Ping'an, I know you're in there. Come out right now." Instead of opening the door, I called the police. By the time they broke into my house, the police had just arrived. The first thing she did was search the house for Zhu Ping'an. "Where is she? What have you done with her?" "Mrs. Zhu, this is illegal trespassing. Officer, she broke down my door. What should be done?" The police immediately handcuffed her. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for illegal trespassing. Please come with us." Seeing the police, she didn't hold back anymore. "How dare you arrest me? She's hidden my daughter. It's her who should be arrested," she shrieked at the police. I looked at the officers with resignation. "Officers, feel free to search. Her daughter isn't here. You're lying. I've already sent people to look around. Zhu Ping'an has been living here all this time," she retorted. After the police conducted a thorough search and found no trace of Zhu Ping'an, they tried to persuade her to leave, but she simply flopped onto the ground, thrashing about like a child. "You ungrateful wretch. If anything happens to your sister, I might as well die." Her hysterical cries attracted the attention of numerous neighbors. In desperation, the police, having grasped the full situation, urgently contacted the city hospital to transfer blood from the blood bank. However, Zhu Ping'an's mother obstinately blocked their efforts, insisting that the blood was contaminated and only her daughter's blood would suffice. She vehemently refused to allow the hospital to use any other blood. I couldn't help but think she was being irrational. With modern medical advancements, even rare panda blood was adequately stocked in the hospital's blood bank, yet she was willing to endanger her own daughter. In the end, to save Zhu Qianqian's life, the hospital used the alternative blood, and fortunately, there was no adverse reaction. Zhu Qianqian recovered. When the doctor explained that as long as the blood types matched, other blood could be safely used, Mrs. Zhu's face blanched. I wondered if she would ever come to regret the years of suffering her superstitious beliefs had inflicted on her daughter. But I was certain that after the college entrance examination, Zhu Ping'an would finally break free from being her sister's living blood bank and embark on a new life. On the day of the college entrance examination, I was assigned to invigilate in the city. The moment the Chinese exam papers were unsealed, I was taken aback to see that the essay topic was completely different from what it had been in my previous life. After a moment of shock, a smirk spread across my face. Jiangwan, you've brought this upon yourself. The 3-day examination period passed in the blink of an eye. As I emerged from the examination hall, there was Zhu Ping'an, waiting for me with a radiant smile. Miss Li, she called out cheerfully. It was the first time I'd seen such genuine happiness on her face. I embraced her warmly. How did it go? I asked. She nodded confidently. I think it went well. I gave it my all. Just then I caught sight of Jiangwan, looking utterly defeated as she staggered out of the hall, muttering this can't be possible over and over. The instant she saw me, she snapped. She charged at me wild-eyed. Miss Li, why? Why are the questions completely different? I watched in silence as her arrogance crumbled and her emotions spiraled out of control. Are you happy? I asked calmly. She stared at me bewildered. I pressed on. Are you happy with your choice to pursue love? Suddenly realization dawned on her. I nodded in response to her unspoken question. Do you regret it? Without hesitation she spat out. Yes, I regret not killing you sooner in my last life. If it weren't for you snitching, Awei and I would have been together. Then, as if struck by a thought, she grabbed my shoulders roughly. You knew about the exam questions all along, didn't you? You deliberately kept it from me, just to laugh at my downfall. Her accusatory words didn't surprise me. As always, when things didn't go her way, she was quick to assign blame, even though I'd kept my distance this time. In truth, the exam format hadn't changed drastically. Many question types were similar. But her overconfidence had blinded her. Ever since being reborn, she'd assumed she was invincible, neglecting her studies completely. Her current predicament was a direct result of her own choices. Had she paid closer attention, she would have noticed the similarities in the questions. But she'd been too fixated on the answers from her previous life. After hearing my words, she stood there, stunned as if struck by lightning, her eyes fixed on me. I couldn't tell if she was mourning the shattered dreams of her past life, or dreading the prospect of facing her parents. Shaking my head, I took Zhu Ping'an's hand and walked away. Before long, the day of the exam results arrived. Zhu Ping'an scored an impressive 680 points. While it fell short of the requirements for Tsinghua or Peking University, it was more than enough to secure her a place at a top-tier 985 university. Jiangwan, on the other hand, could only manage the Funsushan for a junior college. Overcome with emotion, Zhu Ping'an threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. Miss Li, I did it. I really did it. Thank you so much. I gently stroked her head. Silly girl, you earned it through your hard work. She then produced a box containing 20,000 yuan from her English competition winnings, and another 10,000 yuan from her summer job earnings. Miss Li, this is for you. Thank you for everything. I wouldn't be where I am today without your support. As she tried to press the money into my hands, I pushed it back. Keep it for your college years. You'll need it. If you're ever short, just let me know. But she was insistent. Finally, she dropped to her knees. Miss Li, please. You made it possible for me to take the exam. I owe you this. Please accept it. Unable to refuse, I relented. Later, at her college entrance banquet, I returned the money to her in the form of a red envelope. At the banquet, Zhu Ping'an's mother showed up. But there was no genuine joy in their eyes. Supported by her mother, Zhu Qianqian's jealousy was barely concealed, though she managed a perfunctory, "Congratulations, little sister. I never would have expected you to do so well." Mrs. Zhu's expression was a complex mix of selfishness and guilt. Ping'an, I was wrong before. I'm sorry, she said. Then she handed Zhu Ping'an a red envelope and pulled her aside. Ping'an, could you give your college place to your sister? You know she's been sick her whole life, and going to college has always been her biggest dream. Don't worry, I'll give you a sum of money and find you a good husband. I was on the verge of chasing them away when Zhu Ping'an beat me to it. Why should I? Haven't I given up enough for her already? You only care about her dreams. Have you ever once thought about mine? I earned this place through my own efforts. Why should I give it up? Get out. With that, she slammed the door shut, leaving her mother's indignant shouts echoing outside. You ungrateful child. She's your own sister. I gave Zhu Ping'an an approving thumbs up. She'd finally found the courage to stand up against the unfair treatment she'd endured for so long. Time flew by and 6 years later, I crossed paths with Jiangwan again. By then, Zhu Ping'an had graduated from university and become a renowned female entrepreneur. Her first act upon returning to China was to donate 2 buildings to our school. Standing on stage as an exemplary alumnus, she spoke with heartfelt gratitude. I want to express my deepest thanks to my alma mater for providing me with invaluable learning opportunities, and to my teachers for their dedicated guidance. I owe my success to all of you, But most of all, I want to thank Miss Lee from Class 1 Senior 3. Thank you for your unwavering support and guidance. You've been with me through thick and thin. I sincerely hope my alma mater continues to thrive and achieve even greater heights. As soon as she finished speaking, thunderous applause erupted from the audience. I was also named an outstanding teacher, and Zhu Ping'an, my student, personally pinned the medal on me. After the ceremony, Zhu Ping'an took my hand and coquettishly said, "Miss Lee, I've missed you so much these 2 years abroad. I heard there's a new skewer stall outside the school. Let's go and give it a try." I couldn't help but laugh. "Do you miss me or the snacks outside the school?" Zhu Ping'an smiled and wrapped her arm around mine. "Of course I miss you more." When we arrived at the skewer stall, a familiar voice caught my attention. "Welcome. What would you like?" I looked up and met Jiang Wan's gaze. 6 years had aged her dramatically. Clad in a greasy apron, she busily worked behind the stall. The moment she saw me, she froze. "Miss Lee." I gave her a relieved smile and ordered some skewers. Noticing the oil-burned wounds on her hands, I asked, "How have you been lately?" Jiang Wan looked up in surprise, then let out a bitter laugh. She then began to pour out her experiences of the past few years. Back then, having only managed to get into a junior college, she became the object of ridicule, bringing great shame to her parents. When her parents urged her to repeat her senior year, she discovered she was pregnant again. The doctor warned that another abortion could leave her infertile, so she chose love over her future and decided to keep the baby. During her pregnancy, Duan Wei constantly cheated on her and subjected her to domestic violence. One drunken night, he caused her to miscarry. When her father tried to confront Duan Wei, he was pushed down the stairs and ended up in a vegetative state. Her mother, unable to bear the blow, died of a heart attack. Although Duan Wei was sent to prison, Jiang Wan's family was torn apart. With her father still unconscious, the exorbitant medical bills weighed heavily on her. She worked at the skewer stall during the day and delivered food at night to make ends meet. As I listened to her story, I couldn't help but feel a pang of pity. But then again, weren't these the consequences of her own choices? Before I left, Jiang Wan stopped me, tears blurring her vision. "Miss Lee, I'm sorry. I finally realized how wrong I was. That apology 6 years too late was no longer needed. She had already paid the price." Zhu Ping'an's epilogue. When I opened my eyes again, the cold tiles of the hospital and the pungent smell of disinfectant greeted me. The sharp pain as the needle pierced my vein brought me back to my senses. I had been reborn. My mother's familiar voice rang out. "Ping'an, don't be afraid. Just one bag of blood, and you'll be your sister's hero." These words had been drilled into me since childhood, from the day my sister Zhu Chanqian was born with hemophilia, a severe blood clotting disorder. With her rare panda blood type, finding compatible blood was a challenge, especially in those less advanced medical times. My parents decided to have another child to be her blood donor. That child was me. Even my name Zhu Ping'an was a wish for Chanqian's well-being. My nightmare began early on. "Protect your sister," was the refrain that echoed throughout my life. In the early years, my sister's condition was relatively stable, with transfusions needed only every 6 months. But when I turned 15, her condition deteriorated rapidly. The intervals between transfusions grew shorter and shorter, from 6 months to 3 months, and eventually to just a few days. My body could no longer endure. I no longer wanted to be my sister's living blood bank, but my parents couldn't have cared less. To them, my refusal meant I was heartless and unfilial. Even when doctors explained that with modern medical advancements, blood from the hospital's blood bank could be safely used, my parents stubbornly refused to listen, insisting that only my blood, as her sister's, was reliable. My situation worsened and I developed anemia. When I resisted giving blood, I was verbally abused, locked up at home, and forced to do as they wished. I pleaded with my parents to let me go to school and take the college entrance examination. They finally relented, but 2 days before the exam, when my sister's condition worsened again, my mother dragged me to the hospital and took 400 cubic centimeters of my blood. On my way to the exam, I died from anemia. I had hoped that my death would make my parents realize their love for me, but instead, I watched as my mother wept in the hospital, cursing me as an unfilial child and worrying about my sister's lack of a blood source. It seemed I had never been truly loved. My only value in their eyes was as my sister's living blood donor. Perhaps even heaven couldn't bear to see my suffering and gave me a second chance. Waking up again, I found myself back before the college entrance examination. This time, I was determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. In my previous life, I had run away from home with 200 yuan. This time, I was going to take the exam and forge my own path. I rented a tiny dilapidated room, all I could afford with my meager means. I attended classes during the day and worked part-time at night. Then one fateful night I met Miss Lee, the guiding light in my life. She was so kind and gentle, the first person to truly care about me. When she advised me not to quarrel with my parents, I could only smile bitterly. Later, when my mother made a scene at school, embarrassing me in front of everyone, I felt utterly humiliated. And when I was taken to the hospital for another blood donation, I felt completely numb. I wondered if I was doomed to repeat my tragic fate. But Miss Lee came to my rescue like a ray of sunshine. She lent me money, took me into her home, cooked nutritious meals for me, and patiently tutored me. With her help, I made remarkable progress, rising over 100 places in the mock exams. I knew that one day I would repay her kindness. As the college entrance examination approached, fearing the same fate as before, I told Miss Lee everything. She took me to a hotel near the exam venue, reassuring me that she would handle everything and that I should just focus on the exam. Thanks to her, I finally took the exam and made up for the regrets of my previous life. It was only after overhearing Miss Lee's conversation with Jiang Wan that I learned she, too, had been reborn. I couldn't understand Jiang Wan's choice to prioritize love, but I was determined to seize this precious opportunity. All my hard work paid off in the end. I scored 680 points on the college entrance examination. While it wasn't enough for Tsinghua or Peking University, it was sufficient to get into a top-notch university. Miss Lee was incredibly kind to me. She even threw a celebration for my college admission. When my parents and sister showed up, I had hoped they would be happy for me, but my mother's request that I give up my college spot for my sister didn't surprise me. I was used to her favoritism, but this time I was no longer the timid Zhu Ping'an. I was determined to live my own life. After graduating from university with Miss Lee's support, I went abroad to study. Drawing on the memories of my previous life, I seized opportunities and started my own business, quickly making a name for myself in the industry. In just 2 short years, my company grew rapidly, and I experienced a life I could only have dreamed of in my previous existence. When my parents heard that I had started a successful business, they called me several times, inviting me home for dinner. But I remained distant, knowing that their affection was only driven by self-interest. Upon returning to China, I donated 2 buildings to my school and went to visit Miss Lee. Without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. All I want to say to her is, thank you. I will be by your side always. The end.